An army's true strength isn't measured by its weapons, but by the soldiers willing to carry them. The real barometer of war isn't ammunition, it's will. Putin understood this. He believed he could buy that will, quadrupling salaries, handing out bonuses, and selling the dream of a great Russia. But the brutal reality in the trenches shattered that dream. Now, the world's second-largest army is experiencing the largest military collapse in modern history. Tens of thousands of soldiers are deserting, surrendering, or simply vanishing. To stop the bleeding, the Kremlin is pushing foreigners, lured from 48 countries, into the trenches with the lie of job contracts. But they too share the same tragic fate. Every new solution crashes into the same dead end, and this time there is no way out. To truly grasp the scale of this dead end, you need to see how far the Kremlin has gone. Russia's own citizens are no longer volunteering for the front lines. Recruitment is plummeting, bonuses are losing their appeal, and the stark reality of death is reaching every home through social media. Putin doesn't dare declare a full mobilization because the partial one in 2022 led to 261,000 Russians fleeing the country. So where will the soldiers come from? The answer: the world's poorest countries. The method is the same everywhere. Lies. A man in Cuba earning $20 a month is offered $2,000 for construction work. He boards a plane, lands in Moscow, and suddenly finds himself in the trenches of Donbass. From Ghana with promises of education scholarships, from Nepal as hotel workers, from Somalia, Bangladesh, Sudan, the same pattern, the same lie, the same devastating outcome. Most of these people don't speak Russian and can't even read their contracts. The American Foreign Policy Research Institute defines this situation plainly. What Russia is doing constitutes human trafficking under the United Nations definition: coercion, deception, and exploitation. The scale of this network is massive. More than 28,000 foreign fighters from 48 different countries have been identified, and at least 5,149 have been confirmed dead, and that's only among those whose identities were established. Behind the official recruitment centers, GRU-controlled front organizations like Redoubt, Convoy, Wagner 2, Puki, and Fel are operating. According to Ukrainian intelligence, the 2026 target is 18,500 new foreign soldiers, and the Kremlin has ordered the screening of all foreign men aged 18 to 60 across all federal districts. The international reaction is hardening. Ghana's foreign minister personally met with Zelensky to demand the return of his citizens. Nepal's government issued an official note to Russia stating, "Stop recruiting our citizens immediately." But the Kremlin took none of these demands seriously because the front's needs had long exceeded the rules of diplomacy. And the most striking development? Even these desperate recruits can't be retained. According to Ukrainian intelligence, Nepalese soldiers are deserting en masse. Salaries aren't being paid, and there are reports of executions for refusing orders. The number of foreign soldiers who drop their weapons at the first serious engagement, surrender, or simply disappear keeps growing. Foreigners are fleeing, and Russian soldiers are walking through the same door. But Ukraine didn't leave that door to chance. February 2024, Kupiansk. 3 Russian soldiers in their frontline trenches type a message to a Telegram chatbot: Ukraine's I Want to Live project. They want to surrender. Ukraine's 2nd Corps Cardia unit receives the message. A reconnaissance team coordinates a safe exit, and drones escort the surrendering soldiers. The entire process, from the first message to evacuation, is recorded on video. One of the surrendered soldiers says he had been held in Kupiansk for an extended period without rotation. This isn't an escape, not a moment of panic. It is a pre-planned appointment with the enemy. The Kupiansk case is not an exception, it's part of a system. I Want to Live was launched by Ukrainian intelligence in 2022, offering Russian soldiers a safe path to surrender. A phone line, chatbot, and website are all open 24 hours. Surrendering soldiers are guaranteed treatment under the Geneva Convention, and those who don't want to be exchanged back to Russia are not. Since its launch, the project has received more than 35,000 applications, the vast majority from active-duty Russian soldiers. More than 10,000 soldiers have been captured, with a weekly average of 60 to 90 surrenders. At the peak, 350 soldiers surrendered in a single week. Since June 2023, Russian soldiers have been captured more frequently than Ukrainians. The trend has reversed. The project's most disturbing finding lies in the source of the applications. Some come from the front, as expected, but some come from training centers on Russian soil. Soldiers are planning, how do I surrender? Before seeing the front, before hearing the first bullet. Will has not broken at the front. It was broken before arriving. And there is one more factor accelerating these surrenders, one that Putin himself created. Under the laws of war, both sides periodically exchange prisoners. But Russia, instead of sending swapped soldiers home, directed them straight to penal battalions. At least 237 exchange soldiers were thrown back to the front line. Most died or disappeared within weeks. 4 were captured a second time. Putin's calculation was deterrence. If you surrender, you'll be punished when you return. But the soldiers at the front made a different calculation. Returning to Russia means death. Staying at the front means death. But on Ukraine's side, there is a chance to survive. Putin wanted to deter. Instead, he made surrender rational. To understand why these soldiers surrender, why they flee, you need to look at the reality of the front. According to Forbes, citing Estonian analyst Arur Ray, the average life expectancy for a Russian soldier after signing a contract is a mere 2 weeks to 1 month, dropping to just 2 weeks in active combat zones. This figure is shocking, but the reason is brutally simple. There is virtually no training. Many soldiers are sent to the front with just a few weeks of basic training, some with only days. The Kremlin's strategy is to push them forward in waves, sending poorly trained, poorly equipped soldiers as accepted losses, and deploying elite units behind them. The front awaiting these soldiers sent as meat is not the front of 2022. Ukraine's advancements in drone technology have completely transformed the dynamics on the ground. 95% of casualties now come from drone strikes. Small, inexpensive, and explosive-laden kamikaze drones have rendered tanks and armored vehicles useless. Soldiers are forced to advance in small groups and become easy targets for drones. There is a constant eye in the sky. Changing a trench position, lighting a cigarette, it can mean death. Nowhere is safe. Fighting is this dangerous, but the logistics needed to stay alive have also collapsed. The Russian army's last-mile logistics, delivering food, water, and ammunition to soldiers, has become nearly impossible, and 90% of losses occur at this final stage. Drones are hitting not just soldiers, but medical evacuation vehicles. The fundamental principle of combat medicine, the golden hour, has vanished. A wounded soldier waits hours, sometimes days, for evacuation, and most die. And perhaps the most striking detail, according to Al Jazeera's Frontline report, what facilitated some Russian soldiers' surrender was Ukrainian drones dropping food into their trenches. When your own army can't feed you but your enemy does, why would you stay? These conditions break people. According to Euromaidan Press's Frontline report, some soldiers, overcome by a deep sense of helplessness, abandoned their trenches and waited in open areas to be targeted by drones. Rotations aren't happening. Soldiers are kept in the same trench for months. Ukraine's military ombudsman's research identified a critical threshold: 40 days. Soldiers who exceed this period develop apathy and stop caring whether they survive or not. In February 2024, the situation deteriorated further. At Ukraine's request, Starlink disabled the terminals Russian units had been using illegally. Simultaneously, the Kremlin cut access. Russian drone teams went blind. Assault groups no longer knew where they were going. Headquarters lost contact with frontline units. Already broken morale merged with a total communications blackout. A Russian soldier's words from the front are the starkest summary of this picture. From the group of about 50 new recruits in the battery where I started, only 5 people are still in service and 5 are disabled, and the rest are gone. 40 out of 50, 80%. Under these conditions, a soldier surrendering is not surprising. What's surprising is that some still continue to fight. Frontline conditions are like this. But the army's decay is not limited to the trenches. The structure itself is collapsing. A report submitted to the UN Human Rights Council confirmed more than 50,000 desertions. 10% of combat personnel have fled the front. This number is expected to exceed 70,000 by the end of 2024. Russia has never officially disclosed these figures. The data comes from court records and leaked documents, but indeed, court records alone reveal the astonishing scale. Over 20,000 desertion cases were filed in 2024. The Kremlin tried to stop the bleeding. It deployed Chechen Akhmet units as barrier forces. Their job was to stop fleeing Russian soldiers, and if necessary, shoot them. There are at least 30 documented cases of soldiers being executed for refusing to fight. But this strategy produced an unexpected result. For a soldier caught between 2 fires, turning back became as dangerous as moving forward. Fear didn't stop desertion, it only changed its direction. Instead of fleeing toward Russia, the rate of surrender to Ukraine surged. What happened in the 30th Brigade shows the scale of this failure. 2,000 soldiers deserted at once, more than half the brigade. According to court records, most were soldiers whose contracts had expired but who were still being held at the front without rotation. Barrier units, penalties, threats, none of them could stop 2,000 people from saying no at the same time. This was not a panic flight. It was an organized collective response. The Army's internal structure is also rotting, accelerating the dissolution. Russian journalist Sergei Komov revealed a dark truth. When Russia conscripted criminals from prisons, prison culture was transplanted into the army. Organized crime groups structured themselves within units, and Russian soldiers are now paying these gangs just to stay alive. The mechanism is simple and ruthless. Contract soldiers must give a portion of their earnings to the gangs. Those who don't pay are sent to the most dangerous frontline missions. Those who pay stay in the rear. Those who don't are pushed to the front of the trench. Lower-ranking officers are afraid to confront these gangs, and military inspectors turn a blind eye. A parallel power structure has formed within the army that is stronger than the defense ministry's orders. It is gang leaders, not generals, who decide who lives and who dies. The cumulative effect of all this has collapsed the army's basic functioning. When combat soldiers are depleted, support personnel are forced to fight. A leaked Russian general's order confirms this. The cooks are fighting now. When the cook fights, no one cooks. Morale drops. More desertion. A self-feeding collapse spiral. And not everyone is bearing the weight of this spiral equally. The losses aren't going to Moscow or St. Petersburg. They're going to Buryatia, Tuva, Dagestan. Russia's poorest, most remote regions are suffering disproportionate casualties. And in prisoner exchanges, ethnic Russians are prioritized. Minority soldiers are kept at the front longer. Those paying the price of war are not the ones who started it. Behind all this decay lies an equation, and that equation is now working against Putin. In January 2024, the equation broke for the first time. Russia lost 31,700 soldiers while only 22,700 new contracts were signed in the same month. Bloomberg confirmed this based on Western intelligence sources, and UK Defense Secretary Healey said the Russian army is recruiting fewer soldiers than it is losing. In March, losses climbed to 35,351, the highest single-month figure of the war. The first quarter's total picture, approximately 90,000 losses against 80,000 recruited. For 5 consecutive months, outflow has outpaced new recruits for the first time since the war began. Russia's army can no longer reproduce itself. And while losses mount, the recruitment machine is slowing. The Kremlin's daily target was 1,100 to 1,150 new soldiers. The actual figure has dropped to 940, a 20% decline. The signing bonus was raised to 1 million rubles, but as news of frontline deaths spreads through social media, the volunteer pool is drying up. The profile of incoming soldiers has also changed. 40% now consist of prisoners, heavy debtors, and those coerced through amnesties. In some regions, universities have been instructed a portion of students will sign military contracts. Russia is no longer an army looking for soldiers, it is a machine looking for live bodies. The equation is deteriorating not just in quantity but in quality. In the war's first 2 years, the death rate was below 50% of casualties. The wounded were evacuated, treated, and some returned. Now the death rate has risen to 62%. The reason is Ukraine's drones. They are now hitting not just soldiers but medical evacuation vehicles. The wounded cannot be evacuated and die. Every dead soldier needs to be replaced, but recruitment is already slowing. Both blades of the scissors are opening at once. And every soldier who surrenders doesn't just remove one person from the front, it makes the next attack more lethal. Prisoners leak unit positions, commander names, defensive weaknesses. Ukraine's strike precision is estimated to have increased by 30% over the past 2 years. The April 2024 picture crystallizes this double squeeze. In Donetsk, 25,000 soldiers were lost for just 53 square kilometers of advance. Casualties per square kilometer rose from 120 in 2023 to 316 in 2024. The spring offensive collapsed with nearly 100,000 casualties, and Russia suffered its first net territorial loss since August 2022. They are spending more soldiers for less territory, and now they are giving back what they took. This picture is striking, but to see the complete picture, we need to look at the other side as well. Russia still has a massive manpower pool, 145 million people. The recruitment system, though faltering, is still working, with 27,000 new soldiers still arriving each month. For families in impoverished regions, the 1 million ruble signing bonus is still life-changing money. In Buryatia or Dagestan, it can buy a house, pay off debt, save a family. The desertion tracking mechanism is also relatively effective. Some who flee are caught, convicted, and sent back. And to be honest, the toll of war is not one-sided. Ukraine is also facing unauthorized absence problems. In a prolonged war, morale loss is a universal reality. Ukraine's military ombudsman openly acknowledged rotation problems and was forced to implement a mandatory 2-month rotation policy. Ignoring this problem would make the analysis one-sided. But the structural difference lies here. All of Russia's strengths are on the inflow side: population, recruitment, salaries. The outflow side, death, wounded, desertion, surrender, now exceeds inflow. And this negative balance has persisted for 5 months. 1 month could be called an anomaly. 5 months is a structural fracture, and the gap isn't closing, it widens a little more each month. The Dutch intelligence estimate from April 2024 shows the cumulative scale of this fracture: more than 1.2 million permanent casualties since the start of the war, more than 500,000 dead. This is the heaviest loss suffered by a major power in a single conflict since World War II. Carnegie's senior analyst Michael Kaufman's assessment is clear. These methods cannot deliver an operational breakthrough. Russia is standing, but it cannot stop the bleeding. And every day it fails to stop it, the equation tilts a little further against Putin. And the Kremlin is completely silent on this matter. It has never officially disclosed desertion figures. No Russian official channel has acknowledged the existence of the "I Want to Live" project. Court records leak, journalists document, UN reports are published, but the Kremlin ignores it all. 17 generals were dismissed, reasons undisclosed. In the third year of the war, Russia's defense ministry still calls this a special military operation. This silence is the strongest evidence that the problem is too large to acknowledge, because the moment you acknowledge it, you must produce a solution. And the Kremlin has no solutions left. Putin tried every tool. He offered money. They pocketed the bonus and ran. He imposed penalties. They preferred prison to death. He deployed barrier units. Instead of fleeing toward Russia, they surrendered to Ukraine. He recruited foreign soldiers. They too dropped their weapons at the first opportunity. He punished soldiers returned through prisoner swaps. This information spread at the front and made surrender rational. He trafficked humans from 48 countries, but those brought from the other side of the world shared the same fate. 6 strategies. 6 failures. Each one deepened the problem instead of solving it. We said it at the beginning. An army's strength is measured not by its weapons, but by the soldiers willing to carry them. Russia has weapons, but the will to carry them is eroding, and nothing can replace will. You cannot buy it. You cannot force it. You cannot deceive it. You cannot make people fight who do not want to fight. We'll continue tracking these developments. Subscribe to Really Curious, and thank you for watching. One last reminder, if you want the analysis to keep going even after you close the screen, we're also on Spotify, turning long drives into briefings.